everybody, welcome back and welcome to my spoiler-free review of Witchshadow by Susan Dennard. The Witch series by Susan Dennard is one of my all-time favourites and I have been really looking forward to the release of Witchshadow. If you haven't been on my channel that long, I did daily videos last week, so if you want to go ahead and check those out, you'll get my sort of general thoughts on the series and stuff so far, as well as just some fun other activities I did last week. And luckily I did manage to get a copy of Witchshadow about 3 days early. It was available in my local shop at Waterstones, so I bought it and I read it, so I'll have this review up on the release date, so definitely go check it out and I'll have links to order it in my description. But yeah, as I said, this will be spoiler free. I don't want to spoil it for anyone yet. If you're thinking of reading the series, if you've read the series up to Blood Witch but haven't read this yet and kind of want to know what my thoughts are, that's what this video aims to be. But I'll have a spoilery section just at the end if I have time, because my camera's possibly about to die. But yeah, and I'll try my best to not give too many spoilers from the first 3 books in the series, so again, if you are kind of interested in reading the series and for some reason are watching a review for the 4th book, it should be fine for you. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into it. So to get my general thoughts are, I loved it. Loads happened, like so much went down in this book, but it was very well paced and it definitely reminded me of Wind Witch in the sense that it was more character based and plot based. So if you have read Wind Witch and you know that, you know, not a lot happens plot wise, but the character work is there and it's very important to the rest of the series, and you know, there's enough going on with the characters that you don't get bored. And I think Witchshadow was the same as that. So plot wise, you've got Safi's trying to rescue Aaron, Zult is just running, she's got hellbards on her tail. Edwin's kind of up to a thing and I can't really say anything about what he gets up to because that's kind of spoiler, so that'll be in my spoiler discussion section at the end. Livia and Vanessa are together and they're trying to get help for their respective kingdoms because they've both sort of been ousted. They're trying to get help. And yeah, so as I said, like not much happens really plot wise, that's basically it, and it's definitely about the characters. It's revealing more of the lore about the paladins, about all that world building and that history, and yeah, so I think that's all I can really say plot wise. I thought enough was going on, it was still quite fast paced, there was still plenty going on, but when I actually sat down after reading this and thought, what actually happened? It's like, yeah, Zult's running and Safi's at the palace with the Emperor and Livia and Vanessa are on the run as well, like Edwin's doing his thing. You know, not much actually happens, but again, in the same way with Wind Witch, there's so much character development going on and so much interesting stuff being unveiled and revealed that you don't really notice that there's not much going on plot-wise. Characters, Safi, she's dealing with being married to the Emperor now and what he's done to her at the beginning of the book. I won't really spoil what happens there, and sort of definitely you see her relationship with all the hellbards again. Liv and Caden are still in this, and with the Emperor, I mentioned in my sort of theories video that I had a feeling there was going to be much more to his character than we know, and I was right. We do learn a lot about his character. Not quite sure how I do feel about his sort of eventual motivations when you find out what his motivations were for marrying Safi and for everything he's done. Not sure how I feel about that, but it was definitely interesting to see that Susan Dennard took the time to actually make this be a man with depth and with plots, and he has got motivations for the things that he does. He's not just a sort of evil cartoonish villain, which I really like that she does that. He's still a shit person, but he has interesting motives. Safi, she's still impulsive, but you definitely get the feeling that she's much more mature in this book. She has matured over the last 3 books. There's more than just her own life at stake. She's got to worry about Zult, she has to worry about the hellbards, she has to worry about her uncle. You know, she does catch herself and stop herself from saying things that would maybe make things worse, and perhaps also doing things that would maybe make things worse. You know, she has matured a lot from the first book and I really enjoyed her character in Witchshadow. Still flawed, she still does make impulsive decisions, but you know, she does put a little bit more thought behind things and still fiercely loyal to those around her. I did really like her character. Again, Edwin, I can't really say much about his character until I get to the spoiler section because any mention of what happens to him is just a huge spoiler. Livia and Vanessa, I did really enjoy their dynamic as well. They're both sort of rulers who feel they have earned their ruling, and they have a lot of discussions about what it means to be a ruler, because it was introduced in the first sort of couple of books, the idea of being well chosen, so the fact that the Origin Wells chose the people to rule the country that the Well's in. And it was interesting just to see Vanessa's perspective on that and how she feels that her family has been well chosen and what that means, and what that then means to be a ruler. I did find that sort of whole angle and stuff to be really interesting. I liked their friendship and the way they were able to be quite vulnerable with each other, and they have a lot in common, and I did really enjoy seeing them two together. You know, they've got a lot to deal with. Everywhere they turn, they're enemies. Everywhere they turn, they're sort of being backstabbed by people they perhaps thought they could trust. You know, it was definitely, they were going through a lot, and I liked that their sort of friendship and their allyship really grew from that. We also get Styx's point of view, and obviously from the end of Blood Witch we kind of know what she's going through, and it was interesting, she's with Ryber for all this book. I like seeing their friendship grow, and Ryber is really coming into being quite in charge, almost she knows what's more about all the paladins than everyone else. She knows about stuff because of what happened to her at the Sight Witch Sister convent, and I really like seeing them and her trying to help Styx through all of this. As well as the character that they meet, I thought she was quite an interesting character, and all the stuff that you then learn about the paladins and about Styx. Again, I just really enjoyed that. I thought one thing was really interesting was the fact with the point of views. Obviously you get Safi and Zult, you get Aedwin, and then Vivia and Styx. So I thought it was really clever that after what happens in the end of Blood Witch, Merrick doesn't have his point of view anymore, and I thought that was actually really clever because otherwise that's 6 points of view, and that's just getting on to be too many. 5 is a lot, but you do spend more time with, say, Zult and Safi than you do perhaps with the other ones, and I liked how she, and I just like that she took the time to actually go, yes, Merrick's had his own point of view up until now, but for the purposes of this book he actually doesn't need it, so there's no point in just shoehorning that in just because he's had his own point of view up until this point. It's actually fine just to leave him for this book and then come back to him later, so I did quite like that. I'm curious to see if perhaps if we drop any of the points of view for the next book, perhaps if we drop Styx's point of view and then go back to just the 5 that we sort of had up until this point. I'm interested to see what happens there, but I did quite like that she did just drop that point of view, and that was fine because it meant it wasn't too confusing. Leopold, again, a character that I love. He was definitely still fascinating in this book. You do find out some stuff about him and what he's up to, and I did really enjoy those revelations. Again, just seeing him with Safi as well. He's so clever, and especially him with Zult. Actually, you do see him and Zult in flashbacks, and I did like seeing that as well. He's just a really, really curious character, and I can't wait to see more of him again in the next book. But the characters I've saved the best till last is Zult. This is Zult's book. She's on the cover. Her arc definitely comes to play in here, and I loved her arc. So fantastic. It's all about her coming to terms with her magic and what it means to be a Void Witch, to be a Weaver Witch, and the things she can do. And damn, she really goes through it in this book with, you know, her opinion of herself and what she's still with Owl, and Owl still being a little bit of a brat to her, and she has sort of no idea how to comfort her. Her relationship with her mother really sort of comes into this book, and they do actually find each other again at one point, and you do get to see that and really understand why Zult perhaps is the way she is about a lot of things because of the way Gretja has treated her up until this point. And then it just causes some really interesting questions as well about the fact that, you know, she kind of points out that, you know, perhaps because Gretja's mother was a Thread Witch, and they have this sort of almost obsession with never showing their emotions, you know, therefore the mothers have kind of always not been particularly motherly, and so, you know, Gretja's mother's mother was like that, Gretja's mother was like that, Gretja was like that to Zult, and then Zult then doesn't really know how to comfort Owl because she's never had that motherly comfort. And I thought that was a really interesting idea just to sort of bring in. I don't think that's a spoiler. Yeah, it's definitely a sort of exploration of her mother's expectations of her, and almost like the cycle of bad parenting. Not bad parenting, but flawed parenting, and how that can then sort of have a knock-on effect, you know, down the generations. I thought that was an interesting idea to sort of explore. I loved her coming to terms with her relationship with her mother, and her relationship with Alma as well. There's a little bit of that in there. I actually really liked that, because Alma's sort of almost been this character that you only ever really get Zult's opinion of her, and like, you know, you're never sure how to feel about her, and I did like sort of how Zult kind of came to terms with Alma and how she felt about her. Yeah, it's all about, you know, her own sense of self, her sense of identity, coming to terms with her magic and how to use it and how she feels about using it, because obviously a lot of it is, you know, she's a Weaver Witch, she can control other people at times, you know, how does she feel about that? How does she feel about being able to cleave people? you know, she really does come to terms with that. But I did love when she sort of goes full dark, badass mode. You know, she goes quite dark with her magic at times, and I fucking loved it. It was so cool. They definitely went hard on the she's the dark side of the Cara Wen sort of thing. Like, oh, I loved that so much. And she also has a lot to do in the end with the Hellbards, which I thought was really interesting as well. And I really liked that plot point. But again, that's mostly spoilers, so I won't say any more about that. But I loved this book so much. You know, as I said, Zult's character arc was just fantastic. And obviously, basically from the first few chapters of Truth Witch, you know that Safi and Zult are going to be the Cara Wen, the sort of mythical duo witches who'll bring balance. You know, it's never really been a, ooh, will they be, won't they be, plot point. And I like that in this book it's not treated as a huge reveal. Like, you basically get confirmation in the first chapter of this book that yes, they are the Cara Wen. But, yeah, and I like that that's not built up to be a huge plot twist, because we know that that's where it's been going. The author knows that we know that that's where it's been going, so she doesn't, you know, treat us as dumb and be like, oh, here's a surprise. She's like, nah, yeah, we all knew this is just confirmation now. So I did really like that she just did that. You know, and I liked that there was flashbacks sort of throughout this book, so even some things that, you know, the characters already know from the beginning of the book, we then actually don't find out some of those things until later on, because we don't see that until a flashback. I did quite like that idea. It was still another way to drip feed some of the information and leave some early reveals to later. I did really like that, and it also sort of meant that you were thrown straight into the action, and you've got this sort of these flashbacks telling you about Safi and Zult's plan with the Emperor and how that went wrong, because you know it went wrong from the very beginning, and it's kind of just interesting to see it from a flashback point of view, because you're just completely thrown into things like several weeks after everything's gone down. And I did really like that. I thought it was an interesting format. I did wish Zult's and Owl's relationship had developed a bit better from, you know, Blood Witch and stuff. There is still very much, you know, Owl doesn't listen to her and she still plays up a little bit, but it was still cute, and they tell each other stories and stuff, and I thought it was really sweet. And yeah, and obviously, as I said, Zult kind of struggles with her because she doesn't really know how to comfort her a lot of the time because her mother never did that to her. Well, that was interesting, but I did really like their relationship in here. I did get confused about who was who and what was what with the paladins, and because with the paladins you've got the 6, but then you also have the exalted ones, and they've been treated differently with this whole reincarnation thing, and I really did get quite confused about who was who were the good guys, and well, not good guys, perhaps better than the others. I did get quite confused, but I have a feeling that was more of a me problem. I do want to go back and reread the whole series, and now that I know who's who and what's what, you do feel a bit like this gif though of trying to work out who's where and what this means and stuff. You know, you do feel a bit sort of like, aha. So I think I almost need to write down who's who, because there's so many names, and you know, there's 12 different paladins to get through. You know, that's a lot of people, so I do kind of want to sit and actually work out what's going on with each person. And there was even just some reveals and stuff about things that perhaps I didn't really know I wanted to know, like why there haven't actually been Cara Wen for quite a few centuries. We do find out who that mysterious scent is. It perhaps wasn't as shocking as I thought it was going to be, but I did like how it was done and the reasoning behind why it would disappear and come back again. I did quite like that. It was very interesting and quite satisfying to finally find out who that is. Yeah, not sure how I felt about the plotline with Aedwin and Ivrain. He does spend a lot of this book with Ivrain. But because, and I'll get to spoilers, in my spoiler section I'll explain why, but I do understand why it was there, because it definitely comes into understanding the paladins and the Rook King as well, and perhaps what his greater plan is. So it was definitely important. You know, as I said, like, it's the same with all the plot stuff. There's not very much happening plot-wise, but character-wise there's lots going on. I have a feeling it's all being sort of, you definitely feel like this is gearing up for a finale in the next book. You know, so many just plot threads and things are just being laid out here for it all to kick off in the next book. I cannot wait for the next book in this series, because I just thought Witchshadow was so good. Zult's character arc was amazing. I loved seeing what was going on with her and her mother, and just, yeah, there's so many different plot threads that are being laid that are definitely going to come to full fruit next book. So that's it for my spoiler-free review. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a comment down below if you've read the rest of the series but haven't read Witchshadow yet, what you're excited for, and yeah, if you've not read the series and you're watching this for any reason, you know, let me know if you fancy reading it now, if you think this sounds really interesting. I'm now going to go into my spoiler section of this video, so only read this if you've read Witchshadow or if you're one of those people that doesn't mind getting spoiled. So please go away now, leave a comment, feel free to leave a like on this video, it makes me feel better about myself, and yeah, see you next time. So, spoiler wise, yeah, so I'll start with Adwin and Ray. So they spend this entire book possessed. So I kind of felt a bit annoyed about that almost, because Adwin especially is one of my favourite characters. I love his and Zult's romance. It's so angsty, I love it. But he's changed so much over the course of Blood Witch that I was really looking forward to seeing this sort of new Adwin in this book. But we don't actually see him because he spends the entire time being sort of like forced down by this other soul, Nadia or something. So that did annoy me a little bit, but at the same time, as I said, I do really get it, because you kind of had to understand this paladin who was an exalted one and how he perhaps changes his mind, and it seems that the Rook King kind of is trying to get them to do that, because he's evidently going for a whole trying to change the exalted one's minds or something for whatever he's planning. So yeah, I was really looking forward to perhaps seeing Adwin as this new character, and perhaps seeing him get to be with Zult. When he turns up at the end of that chapter and she's like running towards him, my heart plummeted when we realised that he's possessed and he's going after her and he's going to hurt her. Like, oh, I was right there with her. Like, my heart just sank. I was like, no, not Adwin. Because I really thought his plotline was perhaps going to be about the Raider King. I had really wanted to perhaps learn more about the Raider King in this book, but we didn't actually see any of him, which is a shame, but hey. So yeah. But at the end of this book then, you know, obviously he's back and they have a little reunion and it's really sweet, so definitely looking forward to seeing more of them too in the next book. I'm perhaps a bit annoyed that they separated Safi and Zult again. I had really been looking forward to at least one book where they spend time together after they'd spent all of Witch and Blood Witch trying to get back to one another. But at the same time I do really enjoy seeing them apart, so you know, they do work really well both together and apart, so I don't really have too big of an issue with that, but I had kind of hoped to see more of them together. Leopold the Rook King. Didn't see that one coming. I think I should have, because I spent most of last week going on about how they're both really interesting characters that I don't understand, and I should have perhaps guessed they're maybe the same person. So, don't know what's going on there, but Leopold telling Zult that he loves her, and she's like, that unrequited love and things, like, oh, poor Leopold, but at the same time, you know, good for Zult for not leading him on and being. So I did definitely like that we did actually get confirmation that Leopold is in love with Zult. So I'm curious to see what that's going to do for his character moving forward in the next book, if that comes into play with some things that he may or may not be doing as the Rook King. Vivia and Vanessa, I really liked their little friendship and also their kind of blossoming romance. I thought that was quite interesting. I'd kind of called it, but very cute to see it. And still didn't quite understand what the deal was with them raising those ships at the end. I didn't quite understand that, but I think I probably just need to go back and reread it and maybe I'll be able to pick up on what actually is happening there. But yeah, and I really liked that at the end Zult, you know, frees all the Hellbards and, you know, undoes the loom, and they get rid of Corlant, and you know, I thought Corlant's character was quite interesting, but he kind of, with him being Portia, kind of felt a bit cartoonish towards the end. I'm not quite sure how I feel about the reveal that he's her father, because I remember thinking the other day, oh yeah, we don't actually know who her father is. We do actually find out that it is actually Corlant, but I'm not really sure what the significance of that really was. It kind of almost felt like a bit of a plot twist just kind of thrown in there to be like, ooh, and he was her father all along, because I kind of didn't really think that we needed to know who her dad was, apart from the fact that maybe that's where she gets her void magic from. But yeah, I don't know. But I loved the scene at the end where she's trying to bring back Alma and she's, you know, arranging all the threads, and it's like, you know, she's talked about how in the past she couldn't make threadstones, and this was sort of what she was supposed to do with threadstones, but because she's a weaver witch, this is what she then does with, you know, threads for reanimating people or something else. So I thought it was really lovely to finally sort of have that scene at the end, despite how morbid it actually kind of is. It was a nice scene of her actually as a weaver witch, almost like really almost as a contrast but similar to a thread witch. I really sort of liked that. It's sort of in the same way that thread witches will arrange their threads at night and things, and it'll be part of their work. So there she was, comfortable and patient and sort of, you know, sort of content in doing her work and hopefully bringing back Alma. The fact that Alma just wanted to be her sister and her friend, and like Zult just misjudged her because of like how her mum had treated her, was just, poor Alma. It was such a shame. So I really hope Alma comes back, but I have a feeling there's going to be like a price for that. So yeah. Don't know what Al's off up to, or Deirdre as her name is. She's shifty, I can't quite decide. But yeah, so I think that's all I really have to say at the moment. I am so excited to see what happens in the last book, how this is all going to resolve, what else is going to happen. I am so excited for that. I'm definitely going to reread the series now that I know where it's going in this book, and then definitely reread Witchshadow. But yeah, so tell me what your thoughts of Witchshadow are. If you're giving spoilers, please just leave spoilers at the top so that people don't get spoiled by accident. What do you think? Do you agree with some of the stuff I said in this video? Just let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you all. But thank you so much for watching. If you want to see me talk about the Witchlands more, I do have all my videos from last week, so definitely go check those out. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.